Hi, this is Wade Himes with the Himes Group. We're consultants looking at different cultures across the world, how it affects business internationally. Appreciate you taking time at this retreat to watch this video and hear what I have to say. I'm a big fan of history, which ties into a lot of what we're going to talk about how the world has changed here in the United States, but also how it is different in other parts of the world, how that affects business and what that means to people doing business internationally. Um, Part of my interest in this is, like I said, I'm a big history guy. I look how the world has changed the United States. The desk I'm sitting at right now belonged to one of my grandfathers. All my grandparents were roughly the same age. I remember being a little kid and thinking, when they would say things that didn't make sense. Um, as I got older, look back and see some of the wisdom in those things. My grandparents were born when Calvin Coolidge was president. The world changed many times over. We were 6 years out of the First World War. Um, the Great Depression hadn't happened yet. The concept of international business was really much different. Um, Everything was just a lot different. As the world changed, you know, the United States, they weren't in the same world that I was when I was a kid. I was born in 73. I'm 51 years old now. The world has changed for me also. Those differences are best, educate yourself about them and understand what they are and how they affect you. Uh, the people that I thought didn't know much back then, it turned out one of them grew up in an orphanage and lived in a barn. Was in World War II and had 700 hours of combat airtime. He'd been on 5 different continents. These were pretty intelligent, worldly people in their own way. And that's one thing that educating yourself about situations is good for. Different cultures have just different ways they deal with stuff and different ways people behave and what is okay and what's not. We're going to dip into that a little bit. And uncertainty avoidance is one of those things that is different for cultures. Um, a simple definition, not a Webster's definition, would just be how comfortable somebody is or a group is with ambiguity. They don't need someone to tell them every part of what they're going to do. They're okay with just saying, move that over here, not move that 6 inches to the left and turn it facing this way so I can read the writing. You're saying the same thing, but they're much different. That ambiguity, some cultures are more comfortable with, some cultures are not. It also has something to do with the trust they have for each other and not questioning that authority. And I guess to some degree how traditional that society is. Um, when you look at acceptance of authority, it's an important concept that um, if you are in a culture that it is okay to question authority, but the two cultures I'm going to look at today are Japan and the United States, much different. I've had experience in both. I worked in a Japanese plant for 8 years. I've been to Japan in 2010. A lot of experience with different levels of the organization, American and Japanese, and how they reacted to certain things and what their culture was. So we'll talk a little bit about why that is important, how it affects business, and how it affects ultimately, us as we try and do business. Profile of the countries, just approximately here. Japan is an island nation, sort of by itself. There's roughly 125 million people on the island of Japan, 145,000 square miles. To put that in comparison to the United States, we're roughly 335 million people, but we have 3.5 million square miles. So vastly different spatial relations, proximity. Japan is more of a society leaning towards collectivism. What's better for the group is what's best. I'm going to give you some examples of that from when I was there and just some culture clashes that I had as an American who had never really been exposed to that kind of culture, been immersed in it, and some things that I noticed The United States is more of an individualist country. Questioning authority is just kind of a natural thing here, almost celebrated. A couple of things that really jumped out about Japan, which has a higher score on uncertainty avoidance. They trust. They want to know what's going on. They have a respect for authority. They're comfortable with that person in that higher role telling them exactly what to do and how to do it, and they will do it. It's for the good of the group, and it isn't typically questioned. A couple examples of that is I worked there during the tsunami, and one of the things that came up when we worked there was, because we had plants in Japan, was looting. There are several situations in the United States where there's just mass looting. In Japan, they didn't really even understand what we were talking about. There wasn't looting. That isn't a thing. They wouldn't do that to their family to go steal the stuff from the store. The looting, the situation is just much different. Not to say it never happens, but much, much different. Not like you would anticipate in the United States. Everything is about the group, what is good for the group. One of the things they told us when we were in Japan was they warned us before we went to eat that they love karaoke and that it's a little different there. It's not one person goes up and sings a song. They give you the microphone, they take it to the table, and they'll pass it around the table. And while you're sitting there, we were warned, no matter how bad you sing, and I tested that you are expected to sing. If you don't, you're basically saying, I'm more concerned with how I look personally than I am this group and how well the group does. So just a big difference in how they do stuff. Eye contact also. In the United States, it's considered respectful to maintain eye contact when you speak. In Japan, a lot of times that's considered aggressive. Excessive eye contact will be something that puts people off and considered aggressive. One of my favorite differences is our business cards. In the United States, if somebody gives you a business card, you'll look at it and do whatever with it. In Japan, you're standing when you receive that business card. That business card is basically the story of their professional life. You're both standing. You both bow to the other, typically the person with a higher rank. The other person bows lower. You receive the business card with two hands. I actually have one to play with in my hand while I go through this. You receive it with two hands, and then you read the business card and look at it and see what's on it. You do not put this in your pocket. You do not definitely don't put it below your waist. You set this on the table while you talk to them and keep it right there beside you. And when you're done, you can flip it over on the back, put a couple notes on it. That business card is basically their resume. It's what they've accomplished in their life, how they've benefited society and their group. It's much, much different for the United States. And this may not be all of Japan. This is just the experience I had. Like I said, putting it in your pocket is a huge disrespect. Put it in a pocket below your waist is even worse. It's basically expected you'll write notes on it. And if you have to email that person, you'll be able to say, hello, Ichihiro-san, nice to talk to you. That meeting we had the other day. Hope your family's well. Just a different culture and different expectations. I also want to talk a little bit about in the United States, people don't like to be micromanaged or whatever you want to call it. They want to do their own thinking. They want to do their own thing. It's much different. There's typically a lot of question of authority that can be a block to innovation. My position I had in that company was working in continuous improvement. They had specific programs to go through the steps as a group and continuously improve. So the innovation is a little bit limited, but they do have things in place to make that work. Really good stuff that I've incorporated in previous jobs that makes a lot of sense. As far as uncertainty avoidance, the United States, a lot of different cultures. Japan is mostly one culture. These differences, though, one of my favorite things about them is that a lot of times people want the same thing. They just have different ways of going about it. The Japanese, with the concept of everything's for the group, they're still trying to do well and they want the group to do well. Whereas in the United States, typically there'll be people that are trying to benefit themselves It's just a much different thing. I also want to talk a little bit about, there's one particular verse of rules from the Bible that struck me, that I liked. It's from Corinthians 10:13. I'll read it real quick here. No temptation has ever taken you that is not common to man. God is faithful and will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape, that you may also be able to endure it. What I like about that is it reminds me that we're not given more than we can handle. God gave us the ability to do these things. Sometimes these experiences help us find that and let us know what we're capable of and maybe how we can help other people when they deal with it. I guess that's a concept that I think of often with the Bible, is that these experiences shape us but also bring out things in us. Part of that, I look at that and say, sometimes we have the ability to keep ourselves out of situations where we know we will struggle, or to use that experience when we did struggle to help somebody else. I see that as kind of our responsibility as humans to use that experience, the gifts that we were given that can be taken away at any minute, and help somebody else with them. With collectivism, individualism, uncertainty avoidance, the cultural aspects of that, I feel like the experience you have can help the group and make things better for everybody. The uncertainty avoidance, a lot of that comes down to trust. And when you knock down those walls of trust, a Japanese engineer and I may have the same idea for what we want to do, may have different ways of going about it. For my work in continuous improvement, the more diverse the group, the better it is for me, for the group, because we'll typically be able to take parts of what everybody thinks and feels and their knowledge and their expertise and roll that into one. And I may have a great idea for part of it. Somebody else may have a great idea for another part. We'll take those parts, put them together, and it typically works, and it works well. The uncertainty avoidance aspect, I think a lot of it has to do with trust, and other cultures' trust and respect for authority are run deeper within them than our culture, where we're taught that we should question authority and that you should think for yourself and you should you should live that way. There's a couple thoughts on this. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate you watching. Special thank you to my 7-year-old daughter who let me alone and let me record this. Thank you very much.